Hello guys, welcome back to PHPdemy. In today's video, we are going to dive into the world of PHP, which is one of the world's most popular programming languages for web development. So, whether you are a complete beginner or already have some knowledge of PHP, this video will serve as a comprehensive introduction to PHP for you. Before we jump into coding, let us take a moment to understand what PHP is. PHP stands for Hypertext Processor, and it is used in conjunction with HTML and CSS to create dynamic and interactive web pages. Also, to be able to code PHP, we will need a development environment. And the easiest way to set up one is by installing a software package like XAMPP, which provides you with a pre-configured environment with PHP, Apache server, and MySQL database. So to download a XAMPP package, we head over to apachefriends.org/download.html. Here you will see XAMPP for Windows, XAMPP for Linux, and XAMPP for OS. So whichever operating system that you're using, there is a package ready for you to download. So unfortunately, I will not take you through the process of downloading and installing this package. I am sure there are enough videos right here on YouTube where you can see how these packages are downloaded and installed and even run. So for the sake of time, not to make it too bulky, I will skip that and then head over to my local disk, where you will see a sample of the file that you will get after you have successfully downloaded and installed this package. So here is my XAMPP. When you click open XAMPP, you will see a bunch of other folders in it. You just locate for the one with the name htdocs. You click open it, and then this is where all of your projects are going to reside. So already I have created a folder here which tallies with the title of this tutorials, and I call it PHP Basics. So you can call it whatever you like, it doesn't really matter. So I will now head over. I have also created a file, and I name it index. I'll just go ahead and delete this file so that we'll start afresh. So it's empty. So let me go ahead now and open this folder in my text editor. So this is my text editor, and already the folder is opened. I am going to be using Visual Studio Code. You can use whichever text editor you prefer. We have a lot of them. We have Notepad++, we have Atom, we have Sublime, we have Bracket, etc. So whichever one that suits your style, that fits your liking, please do well to use them. You are going to have same results and an exceptional experience. So I will now go ahead now and create our first file so that we can begin to write our PHP codes. So the first file is going to be index. I'm sure you already know this from HTML. Now your first file should be index. That is the file your browser will first look for before locating other files in your project. So again, this in order to understand or appreciate the beauty of PHP, you need the knowledge of HTML and CSS at least. So we have created our first file, and it's called index.php. Instead of HTML, we have it as PHP. Now, in order to write our first script, there is what is called PHP tags. Just like you have your HTML tags, which will have our H1, H2, and so forth, we also have PHP tag. In PHP, we begin by opening our PHP tag like this. We call this the opening tag, and this is the closing tag. So all of your codes are going to be embedded between these two tags, the opening and the closing tags. So, and to print out anything in PHP, we use the word echo. And then in order to print this, we embed whatever text that we want to print in a double or a single quote. So we say hello PHP, and then we close it with a semicolon. If we save this and we head to our browser and we try to load it, we will not see anything because our server is not turned on yet. So let's try and see. Now, since this is your first time of using your local server, I mean your XAMPP, you will have to type http:// localhost, then slash the name of your project folder. So mine is PHP-Basics. Now, alright, we can load nothing here because we have not turned on our server. So we go ahead now and turn it on. This is Apache server. It is responsible for triggering all of our files to the browser, and this MySQL is the one responsible in triggering all of our tables in our database and then exporting them to our browsers. So sorry, we go ahead and start them both. We get access, and then now when we refresh, we have PHP, hello PHP. So if you are able to see hello PHP on your screen, then I have to say congratulations to you. You have just written your first PHP script. So now that you have successfully written your first PHP script, next we are going to look at is the variables and data types. What are variables, by the way? Variables are important for storing and manipulating data in any programming language. And in PHP, variable can be declared using the $sign. And I will just show you. So we go into our VS Code or our code editor, whichever one you're using. We'll create let's create a new file called datatype.php. So we say PHP opening tag, and we say variables can be declared using a $sign. So here is our $sign, and then we say name. So this is a variable, and the value for this variable can be a string, what we call a string. So John, text are usually called string. So we say John is now the value for our variable name. if we now echo our variable instead of the text John, we are going to have our result here. So we now say data types, data dash type dot php. So we have John up here. I am grouping the script in pages so that you can easily understand it. So I will just go ahead now and title this one, let's give it a h4 and title it variables example. So I will go back now and refresh. We have it there. So this is a variable example of a variable. Now let's take a look at the data types that we have in PHP. The common data types that we have are strings, integers, float, booleans, etc. So the first data type that we're going to look at is the string. So I can now close this and then give it a h4 and call it string. Okay, let's say let's give it a h3 to make it bigger than the others. I will say data types and examples. So we have a h4 and we have string. Now we say string is a data type used to represent a sequence of characters or a group of characters, and it contains letters, symbols, and special characters. And we say they are typically enclosed in a single or a double quote. So this here is a string. I remember I made mention of it earlier. I think I said string before text because I didn't want it to use the word string because it would sound strange. So I used text here. So in PHP, this group of letters here are called string. So we say example one, we have a single quoted string. So we say h5. So let's give it a comment here. So we'll give it let's just copy this here and then paste. So we have our single quote string here, and I will say variable string 1 will be, we say it's a single quote. So we have string 1, we say hello world, and then we close. Now to achieve this, we are going to put it inside of our PHP tag. So then we echo string. So we say echo just like we did for variable. So this is a variable, and then the value for this variable is hello world. So we say string 1. When we echo string 1 and refresh, then we have hello world down here. Okay, I omitted s here. So we have hello world there. So this is an example for a single quote string. Then we can copy this and paste and then edit it to double quote. So we have the double quote. So, and here will be string 2, and then we can say here should be hello world 2. So when we echo string 2, we have hello world 2. Okay, I have not even, sorry about that, but you get the point. So we have double quote. So we have it there. So result is still the same. Then next is concatenating. So we say concatenation, and we use concatenation operator to form a string and then assign it to a variable. So we can see that as concatenating a string. So we say we have h5, and then we call it concatenating a string. So concatenating is simply joining two variables to form one, or two strings to form one. So we say PHP opening tag, and we have string 3. Let's say $, string 3 should be, now we can use either double or single quoted strings like we've seen upstairs. So we'll just say hello, and then we'll close that. Then we have string 4, and then we have single quoted here, return, and then we'll close. Now to concatenate these two variables, or these two strings, we say variable string greet. We have string 3, and then we use a period, which is a full stop in other words, and then with a double or single quote, and then we have another double or single quote there, and then we have our next variable, which is the string 4, and now we close. Then finally we echo, so we say echo greet, and then we close this. Now when we refresh our browser, we have hello churn. So this is how you can concatenate two variables and form a word, or if a sentence rather. And you can as well you have also seen how a string can be echoed, and how a variable can be declared. So strings here in this case are just generally variables that have certain values. The first one is the variable is hello world, the second one is hello world 2, next is hello and John, and so forth. So that is that for the data type string. So the next data type we're going to look at is the integers. And an integer is a data type that is used to represent whole numbers in PHP. It can be positive, negative, or even 0. That means these are numbers that have no fraction or decimal parts. So let's dive into our code editor and see how these numbers look like. So we have our h4, call it integer, and let's leave a comment here. We'll say example of an integer, and then we have our PHP opening tag, and then we say we declare a variable called number and give it a value 40. Now you can see the difference. We didn't put 40 in a double or single quote. Usually numbers can be written directly in PHP. You don't have to put them in the quote because they are integers, they are not strings. So we have now we can go ahead and echo number, and let's see what we have. So we have integer, and we have 40. So since we have now have the knowledge of concatenating, how that means we can join two or more variables to make sense of something. Maybe we should also try to make a sentence, just like we have made a sentence with the word hello and John earlier. So let's see how we can combine strings and then integers and make a sentence. So let's say come up here, and then we have another variable called words, for instance, and then we have let's say he is, and then we can close this also, and then we have another variable called age, and I will say yes old. So I'm guessing you already know where we're aiming at. We want to construct a sentence that reads, he is 40 years old. So we have our variable here. We say sentence, for instance, sentence, then which one is going to come first based on our sentence. If you say word, you're correct. So we have word. Now using our concatenation operator, we say dot, then we give a space, and then we have number, which is going to be the age in number. So, and then we also concatenate this, we also concatenate this, and then the last is years old. Then we say age, and now we close. Now we can replace number with sentence. So when we do this and go back to our browser and refresh, we have a sentence down here. So he is 40 years old. So this is how we can represent the data type integer, and also use it to form a sentence using a string. So when you advance in PHP, you will see a lot of stuffs like this. So the next data type we're going to look at is the float, and we say the float is a direct opposite of the integer. That means it is used to represent numbers that have fractions or decimal parts in them. So example, let's go back to our text editor. We can now close this, and then we have our h4. I will call this floats, and then we give it we'll leave a comment here. You can just copy this, and then we'll say example of float. So a float example, we can say same as how we did up. We have our PHP, and then we have our number again, and then we have 3 points. Now this point makes it the float. If we had just stopped at 3, that means it's an integer. So we have 4142, and now we close. I'm sure mathematicians and physicists already know what this number stands for. Yes, in case you don't know, it stands for the number for pi. So we can now echo this and then have number here, and then we can close. And then when we go here and refresh, we have that. So the next one we are going to look at is the booleans. Now booleans is a data type that represents 2 possible outcomes. It's just like in mathematics, we talk about probability. So in PHP, we call it booleans. So it is either true or false. And boolean is commonly used in conditional statements or logical operations, and it indicates the truthfulness or falsefulness of a condition. So example of a boolean, we can say especially when you have a login page, you want to ensure that someone is already logged in before the visitor can access some certain parts of your application. You can use a statement like a variable like this. Now let me just show you. Sometimes it's better you show than you talk. So let's copy this and paste down here. So we have booleans. So example of booleans. So we say PHP. Now we have is active and then is equal to true. Now this statement right here means that if the person section for that login page is still active, if the session has not expired, then grant him that access to go further into where he is aiming to go. And another example is say is logged and then false. Here it means if the person's they're trying to access the page login credentials has expired, that means these two are basically saying the same thing. If it is active, which is equal to true, proceed. If it's logged and is equal to false, do not proceed. So they are basically the same thing. So that's why I would say they are conditional statements. It's either they are true or they are false. Then the next data type that we're going to look at is the arrays, and we say an array is a data structure that allows you to store multiple values in a single variable. It can hold values of different data types such as string, integer, floats, booleans, and even arrays themselves. So let's look at an example of an array. So we still paste. Okay, let's go up and down, copy this and paste here, and then change this. Okay, we need to close this, and then we change this to arrays, and then also change this to arrays. So example of arrays. So we say we have we have numeric arrays. So we have PHP, we have numeric. Let's give it the name numeric, or simply numerics is okay, so that it can tally with the name. So let's say h5 h4. Okay, let me just write it here. So we have h5, then we have numeric arrays. So numeric arrays can be written like this: 1 2 3 4 and then 5. So we separate each value in the array with a comma. So now to get values inside an array, the first one, which is 1, is assigned 0. So we start from 0. We don't count like we count in our normal mathematical way. So usually arrays count starts from 0. So when you say for example echo, we are trying to echo one of these numbers in this array, so we say echo numeric. Now we have 2. Since array is set to start from 0, and we want to look for the array number 2. So when we say number 2 in this term, we are starting from 0, so we have 0 1 2. Anyway, let's see what we have. So let's refresh, and then okay, let me see word. Okay, spelling errors. Here is numeric and here is numeric. So let's go back and refresh this, and then we have 3. That means when you want to look for the third one of this series, you put 2 here, so it will get you the number 3. So all I am saying here is that numeric arrays use sequence numeric keys to store. So in essence, we are saying that numeric arrays use sequential numeric keys to store values. The index starts from 0, like I just mentioned, which is 1 starts 0, is assigned 0, 2 is assigned 1, 3 is assigned 2, just as we have seen. So the index starts from 0 for the first element and increase by 1 for each sequential element that we have just seen. So the next type of okay, I think I should rather give it types of arrays. Yes, so let's give it type of arrays. Okay, it's all right. We already have example of array there. So the next example of array, or types of array as you wish, is let me copy this, is a associative array. I think we are going to look at associative array. So we have associative. So associative array use custom keys to store values. Each value in the array is associated with a specific key or special key. So let's see an example of this kind of array. We'll say PHP. Let's say have a variable called person. Now person, this has an array, let's say name, and then the name is John, and then the age should be, say, age, or let's say 25. So now to echo John in this variable, in this array here, the array person, we can say echo person, just as we've seen of person. Then we have the array there, and then we say name. Now we close. Now if we go to our browser and refresh, we have John down there. So if we want to echo the age, we can also do the same thing. Output the age. We can simply just concatenate this, and just as we've done in the past, and we can just put our string directly. So we're trying to output John's age, so we say John is, and then we concatenate further, and then we say person, and now we have age. So if we go to our browser now and refresh, we have John is 25. So instead of declaring a new variable to assign it the string is, we directly just put it in between the two associative arrays. So this is that for associative array. So the next we are going to look at is a bit it's going to be a little bit tricky and a bit complex. So they are called the multi-dimensional array, and we say that they are arrays that are within an array. So let's just copy this, and can go ahead and close this, and then paste. And let's bring this up here, and we have say it is a multi-dimensional. So an array inside of an array should be something like matrix, a variable called matrix, and then you have this inside this, and then you close. This is simply what it means. So go ahead, we'll cut this, and then we'll declare our PHP opening tag, and we'll paste. Now we have the first set of data within the first set of array as 1, 2, 3. Then the next will be another set of arrays in the data. We have 4, 5, 6, and then another set will be 7, 8, and then 9. So this is a typical example of an array within an array. This is the first array, the second array, and the third array. So just like the numbers within the first set of array is declared, so are the arrays to be declared are all separated by a comma. So to access a specific element within this two-dimensional array, we have let's say matrix. Let's echo matrix, and then we'll say, for instance, this, and then of 2, and then when we go to our browser and refresh, we see that we have 6. So what is going on here is that the matrix is the name of the array variable, and then this array 1, which of course is times 0. When you're counting, you have 0, 1, 2. So it represents the first dimension index, or the row of the array, and in this case it is accessing the element index 1, which corresponds to the second row of the array, and then 2 represent the second index of the column index of the array. It is accessing the element of index 2, which corresponds to the third column of the array. So it's like you're having this let's have it here and you here, and then just like we'll have a matrix, then for a better understanding, so we say the 2 is accessing because we have 0 1 2, so this 2 is referring to 6. This one we have 0 1, so this, let's say, can we add a so this is 0. Oh, what am I doing here? Okay, and this is 1, and then this is 2, and similarly this will be 0, this will be 0, this will be 1, and this will be 2. So when we say row 1 and column 2, this is what we mean. So in terms of the rows, so we say 1 represents the number of rows, so we have 0 and then 1, 0 1, and then the column we have 2, so we have 0 1 2. So where you have row 1 and then column 2, it's targeting 6, and that's why it's outputting 6 here. So I think that is that for the multidimensional array. I am trying hard to break it down into a common man knowledge, so you kind of bear with me. So the next thing we are going to look at is the conditional statement. So we say a conditional statement allows your program to make certain decisions based on the certain conditions that you have declared, and PHP provides various conditional statements like if, else if, and else to control the flow of your code based on different conditions. So let's go into our code editor, and then we'll create a new file called conditions.php, and then we say h4, we have conditional statements, and let's have a comment here. We'll say example of a conditional statement. So let's have our PHP tag here, and let's declare a variable called grade, for instance, and let's set it as 8 to 5, and then let's start writing our conditions. So we'll say if, this is how we start a conditional statement in PHP. So we say if grade is equal or greater than 90, then something should happen, right? So we say you should echo excellent. So if a student gets 90 and above, then our conditions should be satisfied and excellent will be echoed. Now the next condition we are going to use is the else if. So we have else if. So else if is used when you have more conditions to use or to make in your code. But if it's just 2 conditions, when you use an if, you just go with the else. But if you have more than 2, then you go with the else if. So we say grade, if it is equal or greater than 80, then we should also echo something. So let's say echo very good, and then lastly let's say else failed. So I don't want to take us on a long ride, so we'll just end it here. So but I am guessing you understood what we are aiming at. So these are simply a student's grade. These are simply a conditional statement to grade our students. So if a certain student gets from 90 and above, it will equal excellent. If he scores from 18 and above, that means it's above 80 but not up to 90, then he should get a very good remark. And then if he gets below 80, then you already know. So let's take a look. So we go to conditions. Okay, I think it's spelled condition. Oh, what was the spelling here? Okay, I think I spelled it wrongly here. And let's give it n, and then we come back here and then add the s. So we have very good. Now if we go back and make this as 91, for instance, we have excellent there now. And then when we go back and make it let's say 78, so that it doesn't satisfy the two condition up, then we have failed. So this is simple and very easy to understand. Then next we're going to look at operators in PHP. So I will go ahead and create another file called ops.php, and then I will just copy this and then paste here. So I'll change this to operations in PHP, and then we have examples. I said operations, it should be operators. So we have examples of operators in PHP right there. Operators are symbols or keywords that are used to perform various operations on operands, such as variable, values, or expressions. PHP have a wide range of operators that can be classified into different categories based on their functionality. And so here are some of the main operators in PHP we are going to look into. One is the arithmetic operators. So we have H5 and we have arithmetic operators, and we say arithmetic operators are used to perform basic mathematical calculations. So we have an example. So we say PHP open tag here, and we have the different types of arithmetic operators. We have addition. So addition is going to be thinking of how to write this down for you. So okay, let me just put them in H6. So so we have addition and example. So for additions we say sum, the variable sum is equal to num1 plus num2, then we close. So example will be, okay, let me put this in example will be PHP. So when we echo, or let's take it gradually, let's copy this formula here and then paste it here. So we will now substitute. Let's have our variables. So say num1 the variable num1 should have let's say 5 as its value, and then num2 should have 10 as its value. And then when we echo this, let's see what we get. So we have ops, so we have 15 as our answer. So this is for addition. This is how we do addition in PHP. Next, we're going to copy this, all of this, and then we'll paste it down here. And then we have subtraction. So we have subtraction. So the only thing we change here is this. So maybe we'll make here to be so that we have a positive answer. And then when we refresh, we have, okay, we are adding. Here should be negative also. So when we refresh now, we have 5. The next it should be multiplication. So we now also paste, change this to multiplication, and for multiplication we use the asterisk, that is shift 8 on your keyboard, and then we have also shift 8 here. So I guess we have a large number now. So we have 50. And then for division, we have, let's scroll this up a bit. Division, we have division. We use a /, and then we refresh. So we have 0.5, that is 1/2. So the next operator we are going to look at is the assignment operator, and they are used to assign values to variables. We have been doing it right from when we started this tutorials, so it's not going to be strange to us. So let's go up here and get our H5. I don't even know why I'm coming here to copy it. I'm just used to copy and pasting. So we have the assignment operators. So in the example is we have let's say age, which is 25. Now this is a simple assignment for age. So we can also have an additional assignment for age as 5. Now we've added 5 to the original value for age. So when we echo age, okay, have to put this in a PHP tag, and then when we echo age, let's see what we get. So we have 30. So you can see, let me give it some notes. So we say this is a simple assignment, and then this is additional assignment. So next we are going to look at is the comparison operators, which are used to compare values and return a boolean. So when it checks the value, it will determine what it is. If it is true, it returns a result, and if it is false, it also returns a false result. That means if it is set to be true, then value is obtained. If it is not, then you don't have value for that request. So how do we do this? So let's let's close this, and then let's have our H5. I'm not copying and pasting no more. So we have comparison operators, and then the first one is the equal to, and should do it same as we did for arithmetic operators. So we have it in H6, right? So let's say H6, then we'll paste this, So let's have our PHP opening tag here. So we say variable equal is, this is just the formula. So we have num1 double equal sign to num2. So this formula here will check if the value for the variable value 1 is equal to the variable value 2. So let's see, let's declare these variables. Num1 should be let's say 5, and num2, let's say 6. You can see obviously it is not equal. So now let's use, since we have the knowledge of conditional statements, let's go right ahead and use it. So we can say, so if equal, let's bring it down here, let's echo equal. I think let's make it like that. Else not equal, equal not equal. So since we are checking if the two variables are equal or not, so let's come here and refresh. So we have it here as not equal. Let's remove this. Okay, we can break it down here. Let's just concatenate it here and then have this will not work here. So we just break it here and then refresh. Good. So num1 is not equal to num2. Now what if they are equal? What if they are both 5? Let's see, and then we'll see that it has now changed to equal. I think I misspelled equal here. Equal. So this is how we use the comparison for equal. Now we can go ahead and close this, then copy, and then we'll paste. So now the check for not equal is just the direct opposite of that. So we say we have not equal, and then it's going to be to write a not equal in PHP. We have the exclamation mark before the equal sign. So this simply means not equal. So to test this, we just remove one of the equal sign and then add this. Now we're going to have let's see what we have anyway. So we say it is not equal. So okay, let's just change the statement here. So if, okay, let's have it as not equal, so that we don't get confused. If it is not equal, then true, and then here should be false. So if these two variables are different, then equal true. If they are the same, then you should equal false. So let's see what, since they are the same, let's see what it is going to output. So it has given us false because they are obviously the same. So if we now change this to 10, then we should have it as true. So it is now true. Then the next one we're going to look at is the greater sign, the greater than sign. So we have can copy this now and paste it here, and then we have the greater than. Now greater than is written like this, so change this to greater, and then here also we have greater than, and here also we should change it to greater than. Then here we have that. Let's make this capital, and also here should be capital. So now the expression here simply refers to the two variables up here. If variable num1 is greater than variable num2, then it should be true. If it is not, then it should be false. So it's obviously that it is not greater, so we are going to have false. But let's confirm. So the greater than is false because num2 is actually greater than num1. How the heck can I change this to, I don't like this, it's looking so minute, so small. So change them to 5 and can just let's change it to 5. Okay, let's see, h5, h6 should be replaced by h5. So I think we are good now. Good, think now it's better. I will also make it let's make h4 to h1, and then h5 should be h4. Now it looks better. Good, it looks better now. So we are not styling, we are not doing much even with the HTML. So this is not a tutorial that covers HTML and CSS, so that is why. So the previous one, you can just go ahead and make them look cute on your browsers. For me, I'll continue. So the next we're going to look at is the less than sign, which is the direct opposite of the greater than sign, just like how we saw the equal to and the not equal to. So we have less, and then here we should have also less. So here will be less also, and here will also be less, and then it's going to be the opposite of that. So here it's going to give us true, because for sure 5 is less than 10. That means the variable num1 is lesser than the variable num2. So let's confirm. So for less than, we see that it is true. Then next we are going to look at the greater than or equal to. So we have copy this, and then we say greater than or equal to, and then we give it a variable greater equal, and then to write this we simply put it this way. So this is saying it is either it is greater or it is equal to that number. So if num1 is greater or equal to 10, that is 5 is greater than or equal to 10, then we should echo true, else we should echo false. From your understanding, what do you think the answer will be? Is it true or is it false? So the answer is false, because 10 is actually greater than 5. So 5 is not equal to 10 or greater than 10. So next is less than. So say less than or equal to. So here we have it as less, equal, and then we have this in reverse. So we have less than or equal to, and then we have less than or equal to, and then since this is going to give us true, so because actually 5 is less than 10, so the answer is true. So the next operator we are going to look at is the logical operators, which are used to perform logical operation and evaluate conditions. So well, the common ones we use are usually mostly and, or, where, but mostly you will come across and, or, and not very often in PHP. So we will look at this tree in just a moment. So let's head to our code editor, and then we have paste this. Let's paste this, and then we have logical operators. Now for logical operation, we have let's just delete this. So for logical AND, we have AND. Let me put it in and then we can have a variable called, okay, let's give it logical AND so that we will not be confused. So we have a variable. Let's declare our PHP tag here. So we have a variable AND, and this variable AND will be joining two conditions. Yeah, so we say first condition will be num1 is greater than 0, and then in PHP to write AND we use double ampersand, and then we say num2 is less than 10, and then we close this. Now let me copy this and put it up here so that and then we can add our break here. So now let's go right ahead and declare our variable. Let me just copy this from here and then paste it down here, and then it should be AND. So let's declare our variable num1 should be equal to 2. Let's give it 2, and num2 should be equal to 5. Now when we echo, it gives us true because it satisfies the condition. That is to say 2 is greater than 0, and the variable 2 is greater than 0, and the variable 5 is less than 10. So what if we say this is 15? If one of these conditions is not satisfied, then the answer becomes false. So we have that as false because the second variable num2 is greater than 10. So this is how we use AND. Then the next one is OR. Let's copy this and then paste. So we copy that and paste, and then we change AND to OR, and then OR in PHP is written this way. I absolutely forgotten what that is even called, but if you don't know, you do help yourself. So here we say if either of these condition is satisfied, then it should be true, but if both are not satisfied, then it should be false. So now they are both satisfied here, so let's see. So we have true. Now let's see if one is not satisfied, which is num2 instead of less than 10 is more than 10. Still we have false. So all gives us the free pass to fail one and meet one, but not all together. So if we have this as 5 now, then we have true again. So that is that. The next one should be not. So we copy this and then we paste. So we have not, and okay, here should be or. Sorry about this. And then here should be not. So not is usually declared in PHP with, I think we've seen it before, with the exclamation mark. So anywhere you see an exclamation mark, it simply means not. So if num1 is not greater than 0, then it should be true. So let's remove this and then have not here. Just copy this and paste and paste, and then we have the exclamation mark here, and we'll close it there. So in this case, our num1 variable is not greater than 0 because it's -2. So I think it will return true. Okay, but if it is greater than 0, it returns false. So our num1, our variable num1 is not greater than 0, so it's going to return true. So because we say if it is not greater than 0, then we should return true, but if it is, then we should return false. So let's check our browser, we'll refresh, and then true. We have true because but when we now go back and then remove the negative sign in front of 2 and then go back and refresh, then we have false. So that means our conditions were not met. Then the next operator that we are going to look at is the string. I think I won't be saying much on this because we have seen string under variable and data types. So I would say they are used to concatenate string operators are used to concatenate string, which are the periods. So I think we will not be talking much about string because we have seen it and then we've understand how it works. Next, we are going to talk about loops. And we say loops are used to repeat a set of instructions multiple times. There are different types of loops in PHP. We have the for loop, we have the while loop, and then the for each loop, which allows us to iterate over arrays, perform repetitive tasks, and process data efficiently. So we'll go ahead and create a new file for loops. So we say loops.php, and then we have our h1, and then we say types of loops as our comments. So we have h4, and then we have the for loop, which is one of the type of loop that we have. So example of a for loop, let's write into PHP. So we have PHP tag, and we say for I variable is equal to 1. So the value of I as a variable is equal to 1, and then we have I is less than 5, and give it some bit of space there, and then it's incrementing by 1. Okay, no wonder I was having some bits of errors there. Instead of the variable I wrote just the $sign. So we can go ahead here now and echo I, and then to even give it a bit of beauty, let's concatenate this and have a break here. So let's go to our browser and then look for loops. So we have our for loop, which we count from 1 to 4 because we say it is less than 5. So for loop is when you know the exact number of iteration that you want, or you want to iterate over a sequence with a specific pattern, and it consists of 3 parts, which are the initialization, and then the condition, and then the increment or decrement. So let me just give you a bit of a formula for loop. So we say formula, okay, let me put this in in a paragraph. Formula for loop, we say the first part is called the initialization. So we have initialization, then we have the next part which is called the condition, and then finally we have the increment or decrement. So we have the increment or decrement. So if you also look at, okay, let me add the 4 here for better understanding. So if you look at what we have here, what we have just echoed here, let's close this, lest we forget. The initialization will say I is equals to 1, and then I is less than 5. So that means you start from 1 and stop at 4. You don't get to 5 because we say it should be less than 5. And then we now say increase by 1. So in PHP, when you see double plus sign, it means increasing by 1. If you see negative, double negative sign, it means decrease by 1. So next we are going to look at is the while loop. While loop, on the other hand, it is used when you want to repeat a block of code as long as a specific condition is checked before each iteration. So we say let's declare a variable here, I is equal to 1, and then we have a condition. We say while, going by our formula, and then the condition should be I, variable I is less than or equal to 5, and then we echo I, and let's concatenate so we can break, and then let's increase I by 1. So we increase I by 1. So we increase I by 1, and we refresh, and we have that. So this is the main difference between for loop and a while loop. Next we're going to look at is the for each loop, and for the for each loop we can copy this, say for each, let's take this away. So and we can also take that away. For each loop we have let's say an array. Let's declare a variable of an array here. Let's have colors, and we have an array, and we have say red, we have green, and we have blue. Now to use the for each loop, we say for each we have colors as color. Now we can echo color and then concatenate to break. We refresh, so we have that there. So for each of the color we can see them uploaded on your screen. They should be small letters. Like to have it in uniform, in unison, right? All right. So if you are able to follow this tutorial up to this point, that means you have gotten absolutely everything, or mostly the things you need to code PHP application, so that you can advance your career in web development. The next thing we are going to look at is connecting to a database. So now we are going to begin connecting to our database. I would say that PHP is often used with database to create dynamic websites. You can connect to a database like MySQL while using database extensions that allows you to retrieve and impute data. So let's head over to our code editor and see how we can connect to our database. So first and foremost, we will just go over to our browser and locate my PHPdemy. So PHPdemy is where you go to create your database. So let's create a new database. So we are in our PHPdemy. This is where we can create our database. You come up here where you see new and then you click and then you create your database. Let's say PHP, or about that, PHP Basics should be our database name. So we can leave it at this for now. Then let's head back to our VS Code. So I'm going to show you how to connect to a database using, there are mainly two ways to connect securely to your database, and it's either you use MySQLi or PDO. So the choice between MySQLi and PDO depends on specific requirements of your projects. If you are primarily working with MySQL and need specific MySQL features, then MySQLi may be a good fit. However, if you require database portability and want to work with multiple database systems, then PDO provides a more versatile and standardized approach. So personally, I prefer working with PDO just in case I decide to modify my project and want to use multiple databases. I would have to go back and start writing all of my codes and stuffs like that from scratch. So that is the reason why I prefer PDO, but MySQLi can as well give you just fit for what you are looking for. So I will come here and then create a file called MySQLi connect.php. Now we will try to see how to connect and display a message if we have successfully connected to our database. So we say PHP opening tag, then we have our credentials details, we have the hosts, which will be local hosts, and then we have the user, which in this case is root. All users in on your local server on your XAMPP is set to be root. So, and then your password, if you haven't set a password, then it should be empty, but if you have, then you can input your password there. Then the database name, we call it DB, and then we say it is PHP _ basics. Now let's create a connection and we say con, an instance of the connection. We have MySQLi, then you have the host, the user, the pass, the pass, and then DB. Now let's check our connection. So we say check connection. So we say if there is a connection error, then you just die. Die here means don't proceed. Then we say connection failed, and then we can give the reason why it failed automatically. Now if there is no error, then we can now echo connected to database successfully, and then we can now close our connection. Now we can go to our browser and let's see, we have MySQLi -connect. So you can see that we are connected to our database Well, for the avoidance of doubt, let's misspell our database name and see what we have. So we have an error already. So it is telling us uncut MySQLi extension blah 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 unknown database name. So this database name is not known. So but if we go back and then put in the right one, then we are connected to our database successfully. So we can also do same for PDO. So let's go here and create a new file for PDO connect.php. So the same way we did for what's it called, MySQLi. So we have, okay, let me just copy this and then paste right here. Let's say try and catch. And then we have PDO exceptions here and then error. So here we say con and then the new instance for PDO, and then we have MySQL host, and then we have DB name, which is naming DB. Then we have our user. Then we have our pass. We set the PDO errors mode to exception. So we say set the PDO mode, error mode rather, to exception. So we say set attribute, then we have PDO, then we have attribute underscore error mode, and then we have PDO error mode exception. Now if these conditions are met, if the connection is successful, we can go ahead and then echo connected to database successfully, else echo connection failed, and then you give your reasons where it can generate dynamically get message. Then you come down and close your connection. So say this is null. Now let's change this to PDO. So PDO is also connected to our database. Or to, let me say, using PDO, and this should be using MySQLi. So then I'll go back and refresh. So this is how we connect to our database using PDO or MySQLi. So, and now that we have successfully connected to our database using PDO and MySQLi successfully, we can now begin to insert data into our database. So we can now go to our database that we just created called PHP Basics, and then we create a table. We name that table users, and then users is going to have just 3 columns, which will be the ID. Every table always have an ID for easy identification. So we have an ID, and then the ID is auto incremented. So this is AI, which is called auto increment, and we have our name, and then we have email. So also the ID is always an integer. We already know what an integer is. We say there are whole numbers, and then we can give it a length our values of 11. You know, numbers that are 11 digits are not really small numbers, so I am pretty sure your database will not consume that large number, so but it is safe to leave it at 11. Then another data type that we are going to look is the voucher. So here we give it a length of 100, and then email also voucher, and then length of also 100. So I think we are absolutely good. So let's go ahead and then create our database. So our database named users has been created, so we can now begin to insert data into our database. So to do this, we should first of all head back to our code editor, and then create a new file called .php. So this form, let's give it a document type. So we say add users. Okay, let's say PHP Basics, and we can now add users a form, sorry, a post form, and then inputs, and then I am sure you already have an idea. Since you already have idea of HTML, all of this will not be strange. That is why I am not saying much extensively on this. So every input has a name, and we have let's give it the name. The next one is let's break this. The next input is email, so we say email. The input type is email, and then the name of the field is email. The next is the button, so we say button submit, so we give it the submit name. Now let's go ahead and see our form. So we have let's take this away. So this is our form. They can also break that. Let me also break this further. Next, we are going to start working with our database. So we can, I am thinking of how to make this really easy. Then we come in between the tags, and then we include. So the function is called include. We also have include once, we have required, we have required once. So you can make your research and read more about this, so that you have more understanding. Since this is a basics introduction to PHP Basics, I don't want to dive into details about all of those stuffs. I just want to show you how PHP works and to appreciate the beauty of PHP. So we have form, pdoconnect.php. Next, we can begin our try and catch. So we say try, sorry about that. So we say PHP, and then we try, and then we come down here and catch, and then we have our PDO exception, and then we have our error, and then we have that. Now we are going to copy out this form and then include it within our try. So now we are going to start to insert our data into our database. So the first thing we are going to do is to set our values. So we say set values. So we have the name, and then we are using post. Our method of inserting our data is a post method. You can see it down here. So that's why we have this PHP function for post. So we have a name. Next is going to be the email. This is our parameters. So we have our email. We are going to bind these parameters in the nearest future. Now the next thing we are going to, or the next step we are going to take is to prepare our statement. So we have STMT, short for statement, and then we connect. You remember from our PDO connect, you can see it. This is what we are referring. So we have connect and then prepare. Now in PHP, if you want to insert data into a database, you insert it to a particular table. And already, if you see here, we have our table name called users. So we are going to insert it into our table called users. So we say insert into users. Now we have shown our code where to go and carry out the assignment. So we are going to have our values that we got from, we are going to have our table column names here, and then the values of our params here. So let's go ahead. And one important thing, always for beginners, it is always advisable that our table names, our table column names tally with our form names. If you look at our form here, we have added names to them. Each of these input field have a name. So always ensure that the name of your input field matches the name of your column field. If you look at this, open up this table now, see that this column is ID, this is name, and this is email. Even though for now we are not going to be dealing with the ID, so the name and the email is what we are concerned about. So this will help us to avoid complications within our codes. So let's go ahead now and add our table columns. So we have name, comma, email, and then our params values will now be name and then email. Now that we have set up we have prepared our statement, we can now go ahead and bind our parameters. So let's have a comment here, and we'll say bind the parameters. So we now have our statement, bind param name. So we are binding our parameters to our value to their respective parameters. So we have, to our respective variables here. So we have name there. Let's copy this and paste and just edit. And then we have email. Now the next thing we're going to do is to execute. So we execute the statement. Let me add one comment here. We say prepare the statement. So now to execute the statement, we say statement execute. Now if it is successful, let's echo data inserted successfully. Then we can come down here and then try to output our errors. So we say echo connection fail, then we concatenate, and then we have error, and then we get the message, and then after which we can go ahead and close our connection. So I think we are good. Now this function action here, we are leaving it empty because all what we are going to do is within this same page. If this block of code here, this try and catch, is on a different page, then we will insert the link to that page here. But since everything is within this same page, there is actually no need. So let's go ahead and test and see what we've got. So we have name, let's say John Doe, and email we say johndoe@gmail.com. Okay, we already changed the name of the page. So we have form. What's the name of the page? We have this form PDO. So we say .pdo. Okay, let me see. Okay, we should close our connection down here. If we check this, let's refresh. We have the first data didn't go through, so the second data did. So let's try to insert John Doe again. John Doe and John. All right, so if we refresh again, we see that we have our John Doe in here. So let's go ahead and delete this. So this is basically how you can insert data into your database. So yeah, one of the reasons why it is always good to close your connection is to prevent any other person aside you or somebody you have given authority to have access to your database. If your connection is left open, then your database could be at risk and you could lose most of your data in your database. So that is the reason why it is advisable to always close your connection after each time you open it. Now let's see how we can retrieve what we have inserted into the database. I have emptied my database, my table, and inserted new data because I wanted it to be serially. So we have one to be John Doe and the second as Jane Doe. So we have only two items in our database. So to retrieve this data, let's go back to our VS Code or code editor and add a new file called retrievepdo.php. And let's go ahead and copy this, or we can even do it faster here. So let's say this. Now we are going to include our connection just like we did earlier. So anyway, any page that you want to use or link to the database, you must include your connection. So this time we are also going to include our connection. So we have pdo connect.php. Let's close this. Then the next thing we're going to do is to prepare our SQL statement. So we say statement, prepare SQL statement. As usual, we say statement, then connection, like I always say, it's from here, this con, then prepare. Now instead of insert, we are going to select. So we say select. Asterisk in PHP means all, to get everything from that particular table. So we have all from the table users. Now the next thing we're going to do is to execute. So we execute statements. So we say stmt execute. Now the next step we're going to take is to fetch the result as an associative array. Remember we talked about associative array. So let's fetch results as associative array. So we say result statement fetch all. We have pdo fetch assoc, meaning fetch associative. Now the next step is to display our result. So we say for each. We have also seen a for each loop. So we say for each results up. So we say results as row. You can give it any name you want. So we now what we want, which is let's do it like this, echo row. And remember how we output an associative array. So we have the name, which is the key, and then we can concatenate and then add the second column, also row, and then we also get email, and then we can as well concatenate this and add our break tag, and then we can close that. So here we just use this directly without using a try and catch method. So let's go check it out before we can now come back and do justice to it. So we have retrieve, and then we have our data here. So similarly, like I said, it is always good to put your code as a beginner, to put your code in a try and catch block. So let's come down here and try, and then we can come back and copy all of this and then paste it right here, and then we can catch whatever errors that may come. So we have PDO exception, then we have the error there, and then we can then echo it, saying connection failed, and then we can give the reason why. So we say error get message. So this is still the same thing. It all depends on how you want to handle this, either the first method that we just saw, or putting it in a try and catch block. So lastly, we can okay, let's go back and verify. So nothing changed. That means we are still on the right path. Then we can come down here and close the connection, and then we say con should be null. So if we also go back and refresh, everything is still intact. So guys, I think this is where we can call this a day. I hope to make a detailed video on how to insert, how to read, how to update, and how to delete using this procedural method, so that you have ample knowledge about a CRUD system. And then also I have video on how to make how to develop a mini PHP MVC framework, so you can go check out that one and advance your knowledge on PHP. That one is more detailed than this, because this is just for beginners who have no knowledge of PHP, and for people who already have the knowledge of HTML, CSS, and a bit of JavaScript. So PHP will now complement your working with the back end, so that you can be able to create dynamic and interactive websites. So thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe and like this video. Bye.